These words were never spoken aloud, yet you felt them in your gut from the very beginning. A stale atmosphere hung over modern marriage, the spirit of a carefully disguised cage, like a cunning lie designed to keep you subservient, dependent, and obsolete. Friedrich Nietzsche saw this over a century ago when he wrote, "A married philosopher belongs to comedy." He grasped something almost no one dares to admit. No truly free man willingly shackles himself to a system fundamentally designed against him. And if you have the courage to read this to the end, you might save your soul from a lifetime of silent torment. Let me tell you a story you'll never forget. In 2015, Daniel, a successful engineer with a six-figure salary, a stable life, and an impeccable reputation, married his college sweetheart. For years, he played the role of the ideal husband, provider, protector, gentleman, the quintessential nice guy who never raised his voice, who always said yes, even when his gut screamed no. Then, on their 7th wedding anniversary, she filed for divorce. The court ripped everything from him, the home filled with children's laughter, years of accumulated savings, and most devastatingly, his children. He was left with only a pale shadow of fatherhood, supervised visits twice a month, and alimony payments that dragged him into poverty. Daniel was no exception. He was the embodiment of a bitter pattern. Nietzsche, with ruthless insight, warned, "Modern marriage is not a sacred union, but a cage skillfully adorned with the flowers of lies and hypocrisy." In Thus Spoke Zarathustra, he prophetically wrote, "You are not yet free. You seek freedom, but you must first burn in your own flame." Marriage, in its current form, devours a man from within, turning him into a pathetic shadow of his former self. It trains him for submission, whispering about freedom of choice. And if philosophical warnings seem vague, look at the cold, hard facts. Over 70% of divorces are initiated by women, often in marriages where the man naively believes everything is fine. The so-called walkaway wife syndrome is not an empty myth, but a cold-blooded strategy. Studies show women file for divorce when they feel unhappy. Men, meanwhile, endure years of emotional pain, driven by a sense of duty, guilt, and the primal fear of loneliness. Financial ruin is merely an ominous prologue, not the final act of the tragedy. The true punishment is emotional castration, that invisible but devastating catastrophe that befalls the male spirit. Look at the latest portrayals of husbands in modern culture. How many of them are not pathetic parodies of past greatness? From Homer Simpson to the hapless spouse in Modern Family, the modern husband has been reduced to a domesticated buffoon, meekly dragging out a miserable existence in the mire of mediocrity. His shoulders are slumped, his gaze dulled. Nietzsche dubbed this slave morality, an insidious system that brands strong men for their power and lavishly rewards the weak for their subservience. History, like a relentless judge, confirms this with terrifying accuracy. In ancient Egypt, the pater familias, the head of the household, wielded absolute authority. His home was his impregnable fortress, his word, inviolable law. But by the 19th century, Victorian morality had transformed this fortress into a boudoir steeped in cloying sentimentality. Man ceased to be a warrior, a wise leader, a discerning counselor. He was reduced to the role of a walking wallet, a silent ATM. He no longer leads, but merely pays the bills. He doesn't decide, but meekly submits to another's will. In his eyes, only emptiness and the shadow of former pride remain. Instead of honest duty, there's a hypocritical charade of false assurances. And while a man, gritting his teeth, buries his essence, the soulless machinery of justice, like a predator, waits for the moment to strike a fatal blow. Today, this supposedly just system sees a husband as nothing more than a walking wallet, not a person, not a father, not the family's stronghold, just a source of money. Dare to object, and it will grind you to dust. But the most potent poison is the love they sell you. The blissful paradise of the first few months is merely a mirage, but the legal noose remains. And when her feelings fade, you lose everything, not her. 2018 study states unequivocally, in over 80% of divorces, courts blindly side with women, even if they are the true aggressors. The man is guilty, a priori, and while he tries to prove otherwise, his life turns to ruins. But there is hope. By recognizing the trap, you can circumvent it. Today, the men who succeed are those who break free from imposed molds, who build mighty empires instead of broken families, who have grasped Nietzsche's great truth. A true man does not trail with the herd. He does not debase himself with pleas. He does not make sordid deals with sycophants. But how did we come to this? When did sacred marriage transform from a throne into a cage? There was a time when the union of two hearts strengthened lineage, united clans, and expanded dominion. A man was not a walking ATM. He was the master of his destiny, the architect of his own happiness. The Spartans knew this, felt it in their bones. A Spartan didn't beg for loyalty. He inspired it with his greatness. His wife didn't file for divorce out of boredom or in search of new thrills. She respected him, revered him, followed him because he was a warrior, a conqueror, a man who would rather face death than the shame of weakness. He radiated strength and confidence, and she saw in him support and protection. But what remains of that spirit today? Just one overdue alimony payment, and you risk losing your children. What happened? The answer is simple. The most powerful weapon ever created: social engineering, the methodical destruction of male authority. In feudal Japan, marriage was not a sentimental union of two lonely hearts, but an unbreakable contract between families, sealed by blood and honor, and the state dared not interfere with these sacred bonds. A man's home was his fortress, inviolable both legally and spiritually. The church blessed his marital mission. The law stood by him, protecting his rights and authority. But then the age of enlightenment dawned, bringing with it the insidious intoxicant of romantic equality. Philosophers like Rousseau extolled female virtue, portraying men as uncouth beasts and women as fragile angels desperately in need of protection. And there it was, the hook cast into the murky waters of public opinion. Thus was born the myth of the gentleman, of a man who courteously opened doors, restrained his impulses, and bowed before female purity as if it were a sacred dogma. His gaze was filled with admiration, his voice with reverent respect, every gesture a readiness to protect. By the 19th century, this meticulously woven knot of sentimentality had tightened firmly around the male neck. Marriage, once a duty and a legacy, transformed into something else, an emotion. And emotion, as is known, is a double-edged sword. Tears, grievances, manipulations, an arsenal against which all logic is powerless. Nietzsche, mincing no words, proclaimed, "In woman, everything is a riddle, and every riddle has but one solution: pregnancy." In his words lay a challenge, a provocation, an attempt to return things to their natural order. But modern society has ruthlessly erased even this seemingly unshakable biological truth. Woman ceased to be merely a wife and mother. She became a person, an individual with rights, and these newfound rights soon eclipsed those of men, like the sun eclipsing the moon. And now man found himself in the shadows, bewildered and disoriented in this new world. The 20th century dealt a devastating blow to the institution of marriage: no-fault divorce. In 1969, Texas opened Pandora's box, allowing women to dissolve marital bonds without having to prove infidelity, cruelty, or betrayal on the part of their spouse. Ephemeral, irreconcilable differences were sufficient. 10 years later, like a sinister epidemic, divorces skyrocketed. Men who had built families with pure hearts and unwavering faith awoke to a nightmare of lawsuits, depleted accounts, and children turned into instruments of revenge. The system, which once demanded a woman's fidelity to her vows, now demanded only one thing: that the man pay. Recall the story of Michael, an ordinary guy, a firefighter, a man of flesh and blood. 12 years of marriage, not a single reason for reproach, no hint of infidelity, not a drop of violence. Night shifts to give his children the best private school education, breakfast prepared with love and care, attention, devotion, self-sacrifice. Then one day, like a bolt from the blue, she uttered, "You're not who I need anymore." Her words, like an icy dagger, pierced his very heart. She took everything, the house, the children, and a staggering 30% of his hard-earned pension. When Michael, distraught with grief, pleaded for joint custody, he was branded unstable, as if he were a dangerous madman. The judge, impassive and indifferent, ignored his pleas. She, without a flicker, moved to another state, leaving Michael in an agony of despair. Now all he could do was furtively, with unbearable pain in his heart, look at photos of his children on social media, feeling like a ghost in their lives. He could only watch and suffer in silence. This is not an accident, but a cold-blooded protocol, a ruthless machine lubricated by men's blood and fueled by emotional exhaustion. The system doesn't care about truth. It only cares about a profitable narrative. And this modern narrative asserts that a man, by his very existence, poses a threat. Even if he loves madly, even if he stands as a protector, even if he begs for mercy. This is cynically called justice, but the air distinctly smells of ritual sacrifice. The numbers relentlessly confirm this nightmare. A 2020 study showed that in over 80% of cases, women receive sole custody, even when the father desperately fights for his children. The message is clear as day. The father is a superfluous element. The man doesn't matter. A man is useful only when he diligently fills the coffers. But the most monstrous aspect is not financial ruin, but emotional castration. It's when your role is stolen from you, yet the burden of responsibility is not lifted. It's when you're forced to pay for children you're not allowed to raise. It's when you furtively kiss your children, knowing you'll never see them fall asleep. It's when you cry in your car, steeling yourself before starting the engine and returning to an empty, cold apartment that you pay for, but which will never, ever be your home. In your eyes, longing; in your chest, a gaping void; and in your soul, a chilling question: why? Meanwhile, a cultural poison slowly dulls your will. Happy wife, happy life. If you love them, let them go. These phrases, sounding like wisdom, are in reality insidious spells, emotional programming cleverly packaged as good intentions for men. Nietzsche saw this long ago. Love for a woman is stronger in those who have not yet found their freedom. For he who still craves a woman's approval has not truly become a man. Look around you. How many men do you know who have forgotten how to speak, to feel, to protest? Not from a lack of strength, but from a panicked fear of losing the meager scraps the system has graciously left them. We live surrounded by such Michaels, each a living, pulsating warning. It's not the injustice itself that burns, but that we've witnessed it since childhood. A father swallowing indignities in silence, a grandfather falling asleep on the living room couch, an uncle left with nothing after a divorce. Everyone was silent, everyone endured, no one explained the reasons, but we felt in our guts. To be a man means to serve without daring to complain. To be good means to disappear, to dissolve bit by bit, losing yourself. We grew up absorbing false tales. She is your destiny, your soulmate. Love is self-sacrifice. A real woman will bless you with happiness. Sweet lies designed to mask emotional slavery. While we were taught to compromise, they were instructed to demand, to desire more, to unreservedly replace, to reshape their lives. even if it meant destroying yours. Nietzsche cried out about this in Solitude. Man suffers so unbearably in this world that he was compelled to invent laughter, and today men laugh bitterly at their pain. Memes, jokes, TV shows. Homer Simpson is a prime example, the archetype of the bumbling husband, the ridiculous man. The male image has been trampled, ridiculed, symbolically insulted before the eyes of the entire world. And should anyone dare to rebel, they are immediately branded macho, toxic, dangerous. It doesn't matter if he's capable of love, if he's torn apart by suffering. The script is already written. His role is that of a jester, meekly paying the bills, and sometimes failing even at that. In this new reality, a woman is no longer just a life partner. She is the supreme judge, the infallible state, the moral compass. She is the institutional victim by definition, while the man is the universal culprit, branded even before his birth. His masculinity is not forgiven. They try to break him, re-educate him, neutralize him like a dangerous element. And here it is, the true tragedy. Many men have already given up. There is no fire in their eyes, no fight. They merely exist, dragging out a miserable existence with dulled gazes, with buried desires and hopes plunged into a coma of despair. And this is the real crime. Not that the system punishes them, but that they no longer believe in the possibility of salvation, in the very possibility of escape. Romanticism. It became the ultimate, most sophisticated trap. Convincing a man that love is the cornerstone of marriage was a brilliant move of social control, a devilishly effective manipulation. Intoxicated by love, a man signs a contract he would never agree to in his right mind, a complete surrender of his future in exchange for an ephemeral forever that no one ever guarantees. He signs away his own rights, blinded by the illusion of eternal love. And science only confirms this bitter paradox. A 2019 study ruthlessly states, men fall in love faster, deeper, with greater intensity than women. Women conversely cool down first, and once that ice breaks, there's no turning back. The bridge is burned, and the man is left alone amidst the ruins of his hopes. This is not weakness. It is a ruthless program ingrained in the very essence of female nature. Nietzsche saw this when he said, "In revenge and in love, woman is more barbaric than man." Not out of malice, no. Simply her nature craves efficiency, not tender sentimentality. A man dissolves in attachment while a woman coldly optimizes her choices. Such is the law of biology. Thus, the species survives and thrives. Look at the disheartening pattern. He falls passionately in love, gives himself entirely, swears eternal devotion. She, however, accepts his gifts as long as it's advantageous, as long as it aligns with her interests. And when the benefit wanes, she simply leaves, without a backward glance. Not out of hatred, not out of cruelty. It's simply that this contract was never made on an emotional level. It's an evolutionary bargain in which the man is doomed to lose. And yet millions of men continue to enter this unequal union, naively believing in the possibility of being chosen, loved, saved from loneliness. They are blind to the fact that the system is inherently designed to make them feel guilty for the slightest desire for respect and foolish for demanding reciprocity. In their eyes, a plea is read, and in return, only cold calculation. Modern marriage is no longer a sacred act of love. It's a cynical ritual of sacrifice, where one loves selflessly, while the other assesses his love like merchandise in a market, where one bears his soul while the other ruthlessly bargains. And when the deal loses its appeal, the body is cast overboard like a useless object, and the soul is carefully packed into a dusty box of memories, never to see the light again. The most insidious deception is not tales of eternal love, but the myth of female loyalty. We were convinced that in times of trouble, she would remain by our side, that true love blossoms in storms, but the naked, ruthless statistics paint a completely different picture. Should you fall ill, she disappears. Should she fall ill, you'll be there. A 2015 study revealed a shocking truth. Women are 6 times more likely to leave sick men than vice versa. Think about it, 6 times. This is not an accident, it's a pattern. Cruel biology without a drop of romance, pure survival. And so you, who gave your all, cherished her, dreamed of growing old together, suddenly realize that your forever had an expiration date. And it's not about betrayal. It was designed this way from the start. In this dance, you were merely a shield, not an equal partner. What remains then? A soul-chilling cold, gnawing doubts, the ashes of hopes, an emptiness that doesn't scream, but stealthily eats away at you from within. And what destroyed you wasn't hatred, but misunderstood love, blind, reckless devotion, faith devoid of foundation, an inability to see the trap while you confidently walked right into it. Nietzsche's words resonated like a verdict, like an icy wind of change. The man of knowledge must be able not only to love his enemies, but also to hate his friends. For true awakening is not in the heavens, not in spiritual revelations, but deep within, at the very core of your being. It is the bitter knowledge that even those you idolize can be mere cogs in a ruthless machine devouring your life. And the only salvation is not in blind hatred, but in crystal clear vision. To see the world without rose-tinted glasses, to love without servility, to touch without kneeling, to honestly tell yourself, yes, I love her, but my own integrity, my life, is more precious. This is the beginning of the sovereign path, the path of a man who refuses to be a pawn in someone else's game, in emotional chess, where the pieces move not by his will. The modern world is a ruthless slaughter of male potential, meticulously disguised under the guise of routine, success, and adult life. Men whose ancestors hunted mammoths now meekly pay taxes. Warriors who once ruled empires now humbly beg for the right to see their children a couple of times a month. And this is not just a series of tragic coincidences. It is a meticulously designed plan, a system in which a man who bows his head receives pathetic scraps from the master's table, while one who dares to rebel will be crushed by emotional bureaucracy and legal blackmail. But there is a secret path, a way hidden from most, and only a few dare to tread upon it. It is the road of the sovereign man, one who tears up the imposed script, who does not humble himself with pleas for love, who refuses to sign false contracts, one who doesn't beg for time, body, or affection, who needs no applause to walk confidently forward. This man realizes his sole mission is not to be tamed, and this untamable nature makes him truly dangerous. Imagine Ethan, 42, a successful banker, his wife, his college sweetheart, 2 children, a cozy suburban home, a life straight out of a glossy magazine. But one day, returning home, he found a note on the kitchen table. She had left, taking the children, half his assets, and leaving him with alimony payments that were crippling even for his substantial salary. Most men in his position would have broken. Alcohol, pills, a noose, but not him. He simply left. He didn't run from responsibility. He ran from the lie. Vermont, March, ringing silence, a remote business, no exhausting lawsuits, no pathetic pleas, no solace family judge, just himself alone with his truth, living by his own rules, burning with his own fire. Today, Ethan is a ghost in the matrix, elusive, ungovernable. His freedom is far more frightening than any subservience. The free cannot be bought, intimidated, or broken. He is either respected or feared. Nietzsche, with a fractured soul and fiery gaze, proclaimed, "The individual has always had to struggle not to be overwhelmed by the tribe. If you dare, loneliness and, at times, fear await you. But there is no price too high for the privilege of owning yourself." This is not mere inspiration. It is a harsh warning, a survival map, a prophecy. The sovereign man does not harbor hatred for women, nor does he push them away. He sees their beauty, enjoys their company, honors their dignity, but never bows before them, not because he is incapable of love, but because he is no longer willing to kneel before an illusion. Woman is a magnificent landscape, not a predetermined destiny, an inspired poem, not a blind religion. And when he looks at her, he looks from the height of his throne, not from the dust beneath his feet. In his gaze is strength and respect, not supplication and dependence. History will never deceive one who is willing to listen. The Stoics grasped this truth. Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor and philosopher, wrote in his profound meditations, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." The samurai knew this instinctively. Miyamoto Musashi, the legendary swordsman, died undefeated, having never married nor bowed his head to any deity. These warriors were not alone. They were awakened. They did not seek belonging to the crowd. They sought complete self-mastery. While others built family nests, they forged their immortal legacy. While others pleaded for love, they wove the fabric of eternal glory. And modern science confirms this. A 2021 study revealed that unmarried and childless men are the happiest demographic. Not women, not family fathers, but those who rejected the imposed script, who burned it to the ground, who walk through life with fire in their eyes and an unperturbed calm on their lips. The system hates men who cannot be subjugated to its will. It brands them immature, selfish, heartless. But the truth is, the very system that exalts single mothers demonizes single men. Why? Because a man who knows no need is a man who does not kneel. In a world ruled by consumption and dependence, his freedom is an unforgivable sin. He doesn't buy to impress, doesn't drown in debt for approval, doesn't spend his life fleeing inner emptiness. The sovereign man forges a body that commands awe, a mind that disperses the fog of illusions, a life that cannot be taken away. He is his own temple, his own judge, his own entire kingdom. And in this kingdom, there is no room for humble pleas for love, only for generous giving. If he chooses to love, it is not out of need, but from his overflowing cup. He does not condemn marriage, nor does he cast stones at it. He looks upon it with a quiet smile, knowing that love without awareness is shackles, desire without clarity is self-deception, and loyalty without freedom is an emotional prison. And so he walks alone, even when his heart aches, even when the world shouts that he is wrong. For only at the very edge of solitude does one find their true center. Become who you are, Nietzsche's final warning thundered in his ears. Away with the mask of the husband, away with the label of provider. Enough of playing the pathetic role of an extra in someone else's play. It's time to become the creator of your own destiny, master of your flesh and spirit, sovereign of your shadow and your inner flame. It's not about talent, but about courage. The door is wide open, the chains have fallen, the script is torn to shreds. Only one piercing question remains, cutting through the silence. Will you dare to step into the light, or will you kneel again in humiliating submission?